Jaylen Brown gets ejected from a national TV game. Victor Wembanyama, meanwhile, drops 8 threes, and the story of the night has nothing to do with that. It is Bam Adebayo dropping 83 points. I don't even know what words you use to describe a historic performance like that. But nevertheless, we'll try and talk about it right now on a bonus episode of the Your Celtics Source podcast. What is up, everyone, and welcome into a bonus episode of the Your Celtics Source podcast, coming to you on Wednesday morning as I am recording this, the day after the Boston Celtics fall to the San Antonio Spurs. Victor Wembanyama was just dominant in the game, had 8 threes, went 8 of 15 from behind the arc, was obviously a factor in the paint, both offensively and defensively. But to be honest, I thought the Celtics, didn't have maybe the best game plan against him, as nobody can really game plan for him, but they had him under control. Victor Wembanyama was not going to single-handedly win that game for the Spurs until Jaylen Brown was ejected in the second quarter. And after that, the Celtics had no chance to watch that game, or to win that game. The watchability, the energy was taken out of that game when he was ejected. And we're going to get into why he was ejected and whether that was the right decision, both for the Celtics, for Jaylen Brown, for the NBA, for the officials, all of that. But I will just say the Celtics had no chance in winning that game with the minutes restriction that Jayson Tatum was on. And we're going to get into Jayson Tatum in the back half of the show. I thought Jayson Tatum actually played pretty well. There's going to be the ups and downs with him each and every game. But he thought, he did the best he could to keep the Celtics in the game when he was on the court. There was just a massive minutes disparity between what Wemby was playing in 37 minutes and what Jayson Tatum was playing in 24 minutes. There was no way the Celtics were going to win that game. And I give a lot of credit to Jayson Tatum and to the other guys on the team, Derek White, Baylor Shireman, Ron Harper Jr. had a career-high 22 points to keep the Celtics as close as they could for as long as they could. But before we get into all of that, we have to start with what Bam Adebayo did against the Washington Wizards, breaking Kobe's record for second place for most points all time in a single game. And you can say all you want about the ethics and the way they went about the Miami Heat. I'm saying they went about getting Bam Adebayo those last couple of points he needed. Fouling up 25 against the Washington Wizards. Fouling to get the ball back so Bam Adebayo could go down and score on the other end. Yes, it was some dirty, just non-basketball, morals in that game for sure from the Miami Heat. But he scored 31 points within the flow of the game in the first quarter. He outscored the Washington Wizards himself in the first quarter. He scored, 42, something like that at the half, 60-3. That was all within the flow of the game. Yes, the fourth quarter got way out of control. But you can't blame the Miami Heat for the Washington Wizards having one of, if not the most abysmal performance defensively I've ever seen. I know the Washington Wizards are bad. I know the Washington Wizards are historically bad and have been for the last 5 years, whatever it is. But to give up 83 points, you were triple teaming Bam Adebayo in that game towards the end of the stretch, and you were still fouling him. He was still getting to the line. You can't blame Adebayo for doing what he needed to score in that game when you're triple teaming him. Yes, if it's, if it's just a double team or it's just a single, defensive guy on Bam Adebayo and the refs are giving Bam the call to see if he can break the record, I understand it. But when you're triple teaming the guy and you're still fouling him, I don't know what you can say about the Miami Heat's ethics of going about that basketball game. And yes, it wasn't a fun game to watch, but we all switched over, even during watching the Celtics game, we all switched over and watched the end of that game. And what we saw was not Bam Adebayo going way out of control and the refs giving him the calls. It was the Washington Wizards just being, once again, a atrocious basketball franchise. And that's where I stand at it. Is it unfortunate that, it came this way? Is it unfortunate that Kobe is no longer the second place holder? I don't know if I would say unfortunate. I guess that's not the right word. Is it, maybe disappointing for Lakers fans that Bam Adebayo, a guy that's not even a top scorer in the league, right? There's so many guys that you would think would score, or would get, would break that record that are playing in the NBA right now before you even get to Bam. In fact, you have Luka, you have Anthony Edwards playing against each other on the night that this happens. You have Jayson Tatum, you have Giannis. You think all of these guys that are natural-born scorers that shoot threes even. I know Giannis doesn't shoot threes, but everyone else shoots threes. That's the way you would think Bam Adebayo would get to this record, or that you would think someone would get to this record, not Bam Adebayo, who went 7 of 22 or something like that from 3. Yeah, 7 of 22, 20 of 43 overall. Super inefficient game, although 20 of 43 is not terrible. It's 43%. That's a pretty good efficiency, but definitely not from 3. 7 of 22, right? Bam Adebayo is not a three-point shooter. You wouldn't think someone like Bam would be the one that ends up breaking the record. But my thoughts coming out of that are not, focused on, and that's probably, you could say I'm biased against Kobe because I'm a Celtics fan, for sure. But, I never truly saw Kobe play. I'm a little bit young. I saw Kobe in his later stages for sure, but I didn't see, those Kobes in the early, 2000s. I didn't see that. Obviously, nobody saw Wilt. There's no footage of Wilt's performance. But we have footage of Bam Adebayo, and what he did wasn't some, miraculous performance. No doubt about that. It was definitely not, I'm not putting it above what Kobe was able to do. I'm not even putting it above what some of the guys that have scored 70, Joel Embiid, Devin Booker, Donovan Mitchell. I know Luka has 77 or something like that to match his number. I know all those guys, when they put up that many points, it was a much better performance, a much more watchable performance. But the takeaway is not about Bam. It's just about how bad the Washington Wizards are and will continue to be as long as they have this ownership group, as long as they, are in Washington, to be honest. The Washington Wizards need to relocate, to sell the team, because to give up 83 points while triple teaming a guy, it's just, I don't even have a word to describe that kind of performance. Make sure to check out this podcast and all podcast episodes on Spotify, Apple, Amazon, wherever you get your podcasts. Please give a 5-star rating and a review. It's really appreciated. And now let's get back to the rest of the show. All right, enough said about Bam Adebayo. This is a Celtics show. We have to get to the Celtics game against the Spurs. And yes, Victor Wembanyama, he was pretty good in this game. He dropped 8 threes, 8 of 15 from behind the arc. He was definitely a factor in the paint, both offensively and defensively. But to be honest, despite the Celtics' choices on defending him, I thought the Celtics had him under control. Victor Wembanyama was not going to single-handedly win you that game. But what was going to win the Spurs the game was ejecting Jaylen Brown. Because Jayson Tatum, he looked pretty good when he was on the floor. But there was no way the Celtics were going to win that game with the minutes restriction that Jayson Tatum was on. They just didn't have the firepower compared to Wemby playing 37 minutes and Jayson Tatum playing just 24. I give a lot of credit to Derek White, to Ron Harper Jr., some of the role guys, for stepping up and holding the Celtics, keeping the Celtics in the game for as long as they did. But eventually, the dam breaks, and that's what happens when you're playing a team like the San Antonio Spurs, who are a top 4 team in the NBA, a top 2 seed in the Western Conference. And you look at Jaylen Brown. Jaylen Brown was playing extremely well before he got ejected. He had 7 assists. He was getting to the paint. His mid-range was working over Victor Wembanyama. I thought the Celtics were going to win that game the way Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown were both playing. And then comes the no call from Tyler Ford. And to be honest, I mean, was it a foul? Definitely. Was it worth the way that Jaylen Brown reacted to that? No way. It was a little push from the San Antonio player, Stephon Castle, for sure. But that being said, Jaylen Brown has been dealing with it all season. One tech should do enough. And does Jaylen Brown do enough to get ejected in this game? For sure. He comes right back at the official. He's arguing. He's yelling at the official. But it's not the same official that ejects him. And, you know, there's one side of this that says you don't eject a player, an MVP caliber player, an MVP candidate this year, in fact, in a national TV game, a game that everybody's watching to see where these two teams sort of stack up this season. You know, the Spurs are looking to become one of the first teams ever to go from not winning a single playoff game to not even being in the playoff to winning a national championship. And obviously, the Celtics, the remarkable year they're having in a year that was supposed to be a gap year, and Jaylen Brown leading the entire charge, and now Jayson Tatum coming back. It was a much-watched game for just NBA fans in general, whether you're a Celtics fan, a Spurs fan, or neither of those teams. You were tuned into that game to watch a national TV matchup. And instead, you got a game that, you know, you can say the Spurs win. Yes, the Spurs looked great in that game. But it doesn't mean anything. There's no, you know, meaning. There's no things that you can get out of that game. There are silver linings, but there's nothing you can get out of that game for either side. For the Spurs, you win against a team that was missing both its stars, you know, in terms of the minutes that Jayson Tatum was playing and Jaylen Brown going out. And for the Celtics, you know, it's another loss against a Western Conference caliber opponent, but you don't know whether they were going to lose or not because none of their stars play. Right? So there's not much that you can take from that game, which is just the unfortunate part for NBA fans of either team or just the NBA in general. That being said, back to the Tyler Ford. You know, he might have ejected him, and that's one thing. That might have happened. But for a random NBA player, a random NBA official, a official that really nobody knows about, Suyasha Mehta. Have you ever heard of that guy? You might have heard of Tyler Ford. He's been around in the NBA for a while. He's the crew chief. He's a pretty good ref. I don't have a problem with Tyler Ford giving him the first tech. I have a problem with the random guy coming over his partner and ejecting Jaylen Brown from a game. Just, I mean, if you're the NBA, if you're that official, I have no idea who that official is. By the way, I don't ever want to see him on a national TV game again, whether it's a Celtics game or any NBA game in general. You can't trust him to make the right call and the right decision. You have to know the players that are playing in this game, what this game means for both teams. You cannot eject that game because it just takes the entire meaning away from the game, as I had just said. You gotta know better in that moment. It's one thing if Tyler Ford ejects him. It's a totally different thing for you to come over, not even involved in that play, and, you know, try and stick up for your teammate. You don't get paid $55 million. And I said this after in my instant reaction to the Spurs game. You can go check that out on YouTube now. But I said this after the game. You don't get paid $50 million a year like the players do because you're not worth $50 million a year. You're an NBA official. You make, you know, minimum, whatever the league salary is, you know, whatever that salary is for a reason. You're not even a crew chief. You don't even make, you know, the same as other NBA officials. You get paid the minimum officiating salary because nobody knows who you are. And you're going to continue to stay like that because you have no business being in a game with this stakes, with this much on the line. I want to see him, and I know Stephen A. said this on the show this morning at some point. I'm sort of recording this midday. You know, that, he wants to only see him. He should go to the Washington Wizards, officiate Washington Wizards games. And we saw what the Washington Wizards did last night. So that makes perfect sense. Alright, I digress. Let's get on to, Jayson Tatum in this game. And Jayson Tatum, he looked good when he was on the court. 10 of 24, 4 of 14 from 3 is not great efficiency. And the efficiency is going to go up and down because he's still getting his shot back. There were moments earlier in that game, and I kept pointing it out to myself, where it looked like he was sort of falling forward on his three-pointers coming around the screens. He looked like his Achilles or whatever it is was holding him from going straight up and taking that shot. And that was messing with his distance on his shot, and he wasn't able to hit those pull-up threes, those sort of come-around screens and just pull up for three. Later in the game, he was starting to make those as he was able to get his footing right and go straight up on the shot. He wasn't falling forward like LaMelo Ball, who does it as part of his natural shot. But Jayson Tatum, he doesn't shoot like that. And you could just see he just didn't have it in that first half. Second half, totally different story. He was starting to get the flow back under him. But the biggest thing that I loved from Jayson Tatum was, De'Aaron Fox, Stephon Castle, whoever's on the court, they were definitely testing Jayson Tatum defensively. They were going at him, forcing Jayson Tatum to make decisions, move his feet side to side. And I thought Jayson Tatum did a great job of staying in front of them, not giving up easy buckets. Jayson Tatum looks good defensively. He still, has to be guarded normally because he has that ability to make plays for others. His passing and his rebounding has been great. I thought, we wouldn't see a lot of rebounds from him early because he wouldn't want to go up into contact, into a congested rim area and try and grab rebounds. But we're seeing that. He's not afraid to do that. That's great. The mental side of it for Jayson Tatum looks great. He's not hesitating before he makes a move or anything like that. It's just the physical side that we're still waiting to come back. And that's going to come just with repetition. So I thought Jayson Tatum looked great in this game. That being said, the conditioning looks a little off. The rhythms, he's very streaky already, but he's very streaky, especially right now, as he has these moments where he'll go on and, a 5-minute stretch where he'll knock down a bunch of threes and he'll look great. And then he'll have these stretches where he's very cold. I think he's settling for too many jumpers right now, and I do think he's settling just because it's the easiest way for him to get good shot reps without, exerting too much energy or effort. And as he gets that conditioning back, as he gets more comfortable on that leg, that's going to start to change. And we need that too, especially in the playoffs. You can't have Jayson Tatum settling for 14 jumpers. It's not going to work. But, the encouraging signs, he's having these great stretches where he goes on the run, as I just said, and makes, a couple threes in a row. He's still bending the defense, which is a great sign. And obviously his passing, his rebounding, as I had said, is still spectacular. The Celtics played the Thunder coming up. And then I do believe they're heading home against the Washington Wizards, the G League team at best. I think they head home, they play the Wizards, and then they're on the road maybe, or they're home against the Suns and the Warriors. So those will be great games for Jayson Tatum to continue to get more reps, easy games in terms of the caliber of opponents, especially with the Suns being all banged up and whatever. And we'll be back after those games. We're not going to have any podcast episodes as we are, or sort of this weekend. No game reactions either until probably Sunday night, Monday. We'll get back into the flow of a podcast after every 3 games and a game reaction after every game, as I am actually going to watch the World Baseball Classic quarterfinals this weekend in Miami. Hopefully, as I am recording this Wednesday midday, that the U.S. can find a way to advance on a Mexico-Italy game tonight. Italy needs to win big, or Mexico wins by 5, I believe. or scores at least, or not by 5, but scores at least 5 runs. So you guys will know the outcome of this by the time the episode comes out. So, wishing good luck for USA. And, yeah, until next time, go Seas.